Hi, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy again, back with another update. Although I'm not sure at the rate of speed things are dumping on this docket that anybody's truly fully updated at this point in time. I set off yesterday to do the Jed Wallace response to the second amended complaint because he's wanting to either get himself out of it, be dismissed from it, or sever it and send it over to Texas. And I got halfway through and I thought, do you know, I've just had enough of this. It was good, and it was well written, and there's some very witty points in it. One of which you may probably have already heard, where I'll just bring it up, where I feel like now at this point in time that the wave of stuff that's come on the docket and the wave of responses to Blake's second amended complaint, which we'll go into in a minute, it's like the whole landscape of this lawsuit is trying to say, do you see Blake Lively? Do you see Blake Lively? Do you see Blake Lively? It's trying to bang her on the head and say, do you see what you have done? Do you see what you've got yourself into? It feels a bit like that, really. And it's still in a rather gentlemanly kind of way. So the most funniest aspect of this response by Jed Wallace to her second amended complaint, where she's still desperately trying to hold him to this New York jurisdiction by basically saying, look, you know that I made posts that were in New York. You knew I filmed this TV show there because you were supposedly monitoring my socials and all of this, and that somehow means that he's liable to be in New York jurisdiction. And as many have said, does that mean because I've looked at something that was a post somebody made in California somehow ties me to California jurisdiction? It's just nonsense. But the funniest thing from Jed's lawyer was definitely this little segment here. We must specifically comment on 294F, where it is alleged, and it's the fact that we must specifically comment, where it is alleged that Heath, California, and Wallace, Texas, began exchanging text messages on August 10th, and where reference is made to a late night call shortly after midnight on August 11th. Second amended complaint 294H. No reference is made to New York, and in fact the allegation cuts against a New York contact because it notes that Heath concluded the exchange with a winky face emoji. The Wallace defendant's lead counsel is a sixth-generation New Yorker born in Brooklyn, and we can say that no self-respecting New Yorker has ever used a winky face emoji. And of course Heath is from California, where winky face emojis are used excessively, and the next thing there's a smiley face emoji. And it's like I've said before, it's like, this is why it's been so pleasurable when stuff has come on the docket to do with Wayfarer or Wallace or anything of that, because there's been some light relief in it, possibly because they are tailoring it to us and they're using language that we will take on board, and a nudge nudge wink wink type of thing. Literally with this one, they're talking to us as well as the judge and to the law, whereas Ezra Hudson and that, it's just that straight up vindictive, our point of view and no other point of view. There's no humour to it. It comes across very nasty. It's all about the allegations and telling people the way they think and such. You know, it's like taking away people's autonomy because they're saying, no, you did this, meaning to do this. It's all that second guessing what's in somebody's head and saying that's how it is. But so we kind of have needed this all along, these moments of light relief, and that side of things has always given these to us. So I'm going to walk through some of the risks, because what's happened is, if you possibly heard it from others, but everybody, Team Wayfarer, each individual entity has responded to Blake's second amended complaint on a point-by-point basis. And basically the upshot of it is to say that she has no case, that she's walked herself into a lot of it. If she's experiencing problems, it's not related to her employment contract, and it's disputing this idea of extending it, this ongoing smear campaign, because she brought it as an employment action, so it should have stopped the moment the contract was fulfilled, basically, which was long before that she brought that CRD, and also going into the fact of she had 300 days from that last alleged experience of SH to bring that complaint, and it wasn't. It was something like 18 months or something like that is what I've heard. So there's all those kinds of points in it. And there's also now been dumped onto the docket a load of text and email chains. It's impossible to get through them all if you've got other things to do in your life. So I was just going to bring up one of them and have a little read through that. There's so much that I was like wondering where to go with it all today. There is just literally so much. Right, I had a quick pause so I could find which doc it is. Because Jen and Melissa are kind of dumping on all of their responses to interrogatories and their objections, and there's tons of text mail chains, and obviously a lot of it's redacted and stuff like that. But basically what you're seeing is what they're reiterating in their arguments to this second amended complaint is we were doing PR activities, and you can try and spin that any which way you want. It doesn't change the fact that what we were doing is acknowledged PR behaviours. And in all of the messages I'm looking into and have looked into so far in this case, if you wanted to put a negative spin on it, you could, much as we can do anything in life, put a negative spin on it if we so choose, particularly when it's in text message form and you can't see faces and nuance and accents and all the rest of it. She can't make it into a legal argument, and even trying to take it in the worst possible way. Everything I've seen, nobody ever really talks really nastily about Blake. There's the odd joke and the odd I can't believe it that this is working out this way, but nobody's like calling her, as we would say, nobody is calling her names or vilifying her or anything like that. It literally is kind of damage control the way they talk about it, and this is like professional people, so whereby they may have a little joke and stuff like that, it is their job. So there's like this text message here from Brianna Butler Coslow. So this is evidence that's been forensically extracted, I guess. And she's talking to Tatiana Siegel, who is, I believe, a reporter at Variety. So it's one of their sources. So this is PR people talking to a press person, basically. So it starts by her saying, "Hi, starting signal here where I'll share more emails and texts." So I presume this is, what I'm looking at is the signal messages that they were after. So it's, and Tatiana just responds, "KK." So then Brianna continues, "Okay, this first batch is a series of text messages with the date starting on August 12th. I blurred out some stuff that isn't relevant, but shows us communicating on the organic pickups and how we weren't doing anything." So this is dated 21st of December. So it's that balls to the wall. We have to counter that New York Times article. We have to prove that there was no smear campaign. So we have to reach out to our sources and clarify and give them some information. These batches, I don't know if I can even bring them up. They're quite tiny, and I don't know if it's that relevant really to know. But yeah, so I blurred out some stuff that isn't relevant, but it shows us communicating, blah, blah. And the text, "Any update from Leslie/Sarah," is Sarah at NYP, so I guess that's New York Post, who Leslie Sloan had called trying to pitch a negative story about Justin, sending another batch shortly. Let me just see if I can bring it up. I don't know if it'll, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be legible from, but I don't know if it's that relevant really to know even what's there. And much of it is scribbled out, so they've just given her what's relevant. La la la. So it carries on and on and on. Oh, it's quite a bit of it. Can I blow that up? What's that? Just pause. So there's a little bit there. It's very hard to see. But it's basically text communications between the PR people. And it's back when they were saying they want him to put out, well, they have used the F word there, effing statement. And then somebody's replied, do they know about what yet, though? Like what specifically he's meant to be apologising for? And then somebody's responded, no idea, still. So it's along the lines of that. It's just them proving that that they didn't know half the time what they were supposed to be apologising for. Paul just the kind of speaking to the predicament it's in. And then there's further on down the line, any new movement on JB, updates from Sarah Leslie so we can keep across. I'd like to start prepping materials if he's going to be obliterated on Sunday, lol. lol. Yes, agree. So we can prepare heading into weekend. So you can see it's like work product. So that's the end of those particular set of communications. Then Brianna's going, this next one where I call her Leslie Dart instead of Sloan, but is timestamped from August when we got the news. There are sensitivities of Sarah and Melissa being sisters, but we're never given any favours with her. So that's Sarah, Nathan, obviously. Let me just see if I can blow that up. So just trying to understand it, it looks like there was some back and forth about how do they talk about or get away from the fact that there were separate screenings. I don't know if that's relating to the basement and stuff. It's like they're trying to figure out how do we keep the stock, how do we get through the press of this movie so that it doesn't blow up now kind of thing, stop this and kind of getting out, I guess. It looks like words to that effect, messaging backwards and forwards. But again, just like regular, what you would need to handle in terms of PR. So then further down, there's still on the 24th, this was the first piece of press that broke in August that was done by her team. I'll send shortly emails of us engaging with reporters and stating there was no comment from our end, and it links to a page 6 article where it's pictures of Blake and Justin together on set, and I think that's a little inset of probably Lana Del Rey. I think it's when there was supposed, saying that there were arguments about what songs and what music. So it's like giving them that first rumble. The title of the article was Blake Lively reveals clash over it ends with a song choice amid feud rumours. So they're saying that was the first piece of press, that indicated something was not quite right, and it came from Lively's side of things. And then later Brianna saying, sorry, this was the original story by Sarah, who had been contacted by Leslie. Date is August 9th of story. Our text messages dating August 1st discuss how Leslie reached out to Sarah, and the title of the linked article, which shows you pictures of Ryan and Blake and Ryan's mum and Brendan Sklenar and Hugh Jackman all beaming for the camera at the premiere, and Justin in a separate shot. And the title of that article, Justin Baldoni made Blake Lively uncomfortable. Sources. So then Melissa Nathan seems to come into it. Has Leslie bothered you as of late today? No, she's completely ignoring me now because she knows that she's doing this. That's Melissa Nathan saying that. And then later on, Tatiana Siegel. Okay, I'm going to review all of these in a couple of hours. I'm just doing a little bit of holiday shopping first, but I can't wait to dig in. Brianna, okay, great, thank you, and I'll send you emails shortly. Tatiana, this is getting crazier by the minute. Any truth to this deadline story, which WME wouldn't confirm that Justin has been dropped by WME? And Brianna's response is, I believe it is true. Tatiana, crazy. I just got back from shopping and someone on web team asked me to confirm. WME saying nothing, but you would know just as well. Brianna, I know it's crazy, and also confirming that the texts I share are also just off the record now for review. I just want to make sure my colleague Katie's name isn't referred to, as we're not named in the claim. Brian is our lawyer on this, who said he wants to chat with you as well. Tatiana, confirmed off the record, and yes, happy to talk to Brian. Off the record, are there any plans to sue her? And Brianna's put, I think Brian can speak further to that for sure, because I'm not 100% sure. And she just responded KK. So I just thought I'd show you a little one. So there's a lot of kind of stuff that's dumped on the docket now. Oh, it's almost like feeling, right, you're going to deal with this, and you're going to deal with this, and deal with this, and deal with this, and deal with this. Like you like you like avalanching people with omnibus briefs and massive second amended complaints. Have a go of all of this. It's like that. I don't know if that was because obviously they're addressing this second amended complaint different to what they did the first one. They're taking it on this point by point basis and having everybody individually respond to it. So I don't know if that's like normal kind of legal practice or it's particularly tactical, but it certainly is very effective in terms of, you know, like if we were talking subconscious work on your mind, hearing that over and over and over and over again from various different parties would stamp it in your head that this is stupid, this is nonsense, there's nothing here, she's reaching, she did it to herself. It's had a very clever effect of doing that. It's certainly, if it is strategy, it's very, very clever for sure. So let's have a look at this. I'm not going to go through the whole second amended complaint and all of that, but I just wanted to pick out, you know, because there's lots, because obviously Steve Sarowitz has responded separately as well, and he's been accused of a lot of various things, like comments at the premiere along the lines of likening how he will respond to Blake and Ryan and destroy them, and it'll be like Israel targeting Hamas basically, and there'll be thousands dead, and not, you know, like all of that accusation that was levied against him, and basically his response to that is no, never happened, deny the allegations. And one of the other points you made about him, was it him? I just wanted to touch on briefly, there has been an awful lot of horrendously nasty stuff on the internet that people have said about Blake. But the thing is, she's trying to make out that they're responsible for it because their smear campaign caused this avalanche of hate towards her. So one of her points in the second amended complaint was on February 4th, Amazon Prime Video announced on social media via collaboration with the film's director, Ms. Lively and others, the upcoming release of their new movie. The announcement immediately faced a steady stream of comments repeating the false and harmful statements invented and perpetuated in the smear campaign financed by Mr. Sarowitz and executed by defendants. I mean, that language is just so wrong, isn't it really? Smear campaign financed by Mr. Sarowitz. These actions were designed to damage the success of Ms. Lively's new film, which affects not only Ms. Lively but the other cast and crew as well as the distributors of the film. So it's like implying that these people enacted this smear campaign that will have results in perpetuity for everybody that's reasonably connected to Blake Lively in any kind of sense, that their whole lives are going to be damaged by for the rest of the time by this smear campaign that was supposedly financed and executed by Sarowitz and the defendants. It's just story. It's literally just made up story. You can say these things, but you can't legally prove them, you know. Isn't that what Harrison Ford said about Star Wars? That's just popped into my head. I've heard that somewhere. I think it's when Harrison Ford said to George Lucas, you can type this shit, but you can't say it. It's kind of like that, really, isn't it? So basically, it's like when people were saying, like, why is Blake Lively's name placed higher than Anna Kendrick's? Is it also her edit? And then people commenting, yes, there's TikToks on this. And then somebody else, because she probably bullied them to do it. Anna hates her too. I won't read a lot of the others because some of them are really nasty, probably because she doesn't have talent. Another one, instead of taking over other people's projects, why don't you create your own project if you want to be project director, producer, wardrobe team, script writer with your own money? this is the most logical cue that I'm asking you. And she's put in plenty of snapshots like that, like, why would you want to take over someone's movie? The outfits for It Ends With Us were so out of touch, which they were. It's like Lily is not supposed to be this wealthy entity, from what I understand. So why was she wearing sparkly Louboutins and designer clothes and things that she would have had to have thrifted, and you'd have had to have been incredibly lucky to have thrifted them. So, and just like, no thanks, we don't want to watch bullies like Blake. And then, they got, she puts in some progressively nastier ones where people are using swear language and stuff like that. But the thing is, it's like all trying to say, you caused this. This is nothing to do with me, nothing to do with any action that I took. This vitriol and violence is unlike anything Ms. Lively has experienced in her 20-year career. But she's never done this to this extent before. That's the problem, isn't it? It's like these things generally don't just happen out of nothing. There's a steady progression, isn't there? You get away with a little bit here, you take a bit more liberty the next time, and a bit more liberty the next time, and it grows and expands and becomes something else. And it's like I've kept saying, it's like, given a different time, slightly different set of circumstances, it might not have come to this, slightly different personalities clashing. It wouldn't have got this big. But it's like, and I'm going to touch on the Taylor Swift thing as well, because she is right in what she says, and whether it's about Blake Lively or not, we don't know. And the thing that annoys me about Taylor, and I would classify myself as a bit of a Swiftie, is there comes a time when Easter eggs, to my mind, aren't good enough, where you just want somebody to speak plainly and say how it is. And she's powerful enough and secure enough that she could put certain things straight, really, if she wanted to. I'm not really interested in hidden messages in songs and unpicking Easter eggs and all of that. Just say it how it is. Just say what happened. Just say what you know. Just put an end to things. That's my feeling. It's like, don't create like more of a firestorm where people just, because we don't know what's in Taylor Swift's head, and it's like you can unpack those songs and the songs in the past however you want to. It's like Blake Lively's evidence. You could look at them in any whichever way you particularly want to put a spin on it. You know what I mean? I'm not really interested in the intrigue or Easter eggs and all of that. I literally at this point just want this to go away, for there to be a resolution. Because the thing is, and she points out properly, does Taylor, like, people can put your name on anything. People can say you did anything. People can accuse you of anything, but it didn't mean it happened, or it didn't mean that's true about you. How you deal with it is up to you, whether you choose to ignore it and just go off and live your life. And you've got to remember, Blake Lively has better things to be doing. She's married, she's got 4 children. At the core of all of it, is what she's doing right now more valuable than doing a good job of raising her children and protecting them from all of this? Because this is out there on the internet for her children in perpetuity. I don't know why I keep saying that today, but they have to live with this for the rest of their lives. And she's wrought that on herself, and she's wrought that on her children, basically. So let's kind of pop up with, so I'm just going to break through a few points of what's in the amended complaint that's supposedly different. So I've just got some notes. I'm just going to read from that. So Blake says concerns about Justin's on-set conduct were... So this is kind of what's new or been a bit expanded on. Blake says concerns about Justin's on-set conduct were reported to Sony's rep Andrea Giannetti and a producer back in May 2023. She claims Justin texted acknowledging concerns on June 1st, but no true fixes happened. She then pushed for a 17-point protections for return to production rider before filming resumed. That May 23 period was where she claimed Justin was making women, Ms. Lively and others, uncomfortable, and she spoke to a mutual friend of Heath and Baldoni, and that's when she was saying, I was going to invite you to set, but it's HR nuts today. And she said things along the line of these people's like clowns, and don't want you looking at me, don't want your gaze, don't want your tongue, and she called them creeps and stuff like that. So that in itself is weird, because if you're mutual friends, this person is a mutual friend of Jamie and Justin, why would she be saying things like this to them unless she's trying to influence them? Or because a narcissist will do that. They will rob you of your friends. They'll tune you out, they'll sideline you, they'll force your friends to inadvertently pick a side. That is what happens. That's what narcissists do. So the rider demanded an intimacy coordinator at all times with Blake, which is, people don't have them at all times. It's when there's actual intimate scenes. No spontaneous intimate improvisation, no comment/touching outside of what's required for scenes. Strict rules for nudity, partial nudity, and a mandatory all-hands meeting before that return to the set. So that all-hands meeting, as we know, happened January 4th, 2024 with Justin, Jamie Heath, producer Alex Sachs, producer Todd Black, Giannetti from Sony, Blake and Ryan Reynolds. And the second amended complaint says the meeting covered specific examples of conduct that triggered the rider. So in that meeting, it is claimed on point 20 that Blake read out the entire 30-point document, the whole no more and all of that document during that meeting, and insisted on agreement. So why was it then suddenly a 17-point list that he kind of had to agree to? Plus, in his answer, Justin completely denies the allegations in point 20. So he denies that meeting was all about all of these things that he'd done wrong and all of the bad conduct, and he just flat out denies it. So it's like he doesn't even elaborate. It's just like a basic denies the allegations. So it'd be interesting to know exactly what did go on in that meeting, if only we'd all been flies on the wall. So Justin completely denies the allegations in point 20, which means he denies that all of their bad behaviour, we're talking about Justin's and Jamie's, was discussed in detail and mutually pronounced unacceptable, and that Justin and Jamie agreed that the entire 30 points would not happen again. I mean, they must have been flabbergasted in that meeting, and don't forget that's the meeting supposedly where Ryan was so incensed about his wife's weight and that that insinuation and all of that. It doesn't sound like a meeting where things were worked through, that he steadily worked through and discussed this 30-point thing and both sides got to put a case across, does it? It doesn't really come across that way. So Justin's answer, he largely just admits, because you think of those early statements in that second amended complaint, it's all where it's using his own language and his own books and his own podcasts against him. So largely he's often just saying, I admit I wrote books, I admit I had a podcast, I admit I had a TED talk, and denies all other allegations that are literally just how she wants to spin his misogyny and all of that, and that he has some kind of secret undercover personality where he's entirely different in his anti-feminism and all the rest of it. So he basically admits in his responses back that he's Wayfair's co-founder, co-chair and the film's director, lead actor, admits there was a guild strike shutdown and that a January 4th meeting happened with the named attendees, admits agreeing to Blake's 17 rider demands, including the meeting with Todd Black, prior to going back to production. He denies the way Blake characterises the reasons, context, and denies that Sony's Giannetti relayed cast complaints to him. And he also denies any sexual misconduct framing attached to that June the 1st text when she supposedly says that he answered clearly as if it was a HR allegation of some kind. So he did implement Blake's safety framework, all 17 points, which basically was a good faith act, as we know, because he felt he had no choice not to agree. So it was not an admission of wrongdoing, basically saying in order to expedite and find a way forward, we agree, but we reject your description of why it's necessary, basically, which is what we know. So this is why it's been quite hard to cover the second amended complaint, because it's a lot of banging on about the same thing and it's quite exhausting, really. So the stronger, I guess, allegations in the second amended complaint was this PR strategy allegedly ramping up in August into a social combat plan, social manipulation, hiring Jed to run an untraceable digital army across Reddit, TikTok, IG to boost pro-Justin and bury Blake. And that's the thing of, she can talk about bots, troll farms and all the rest of it as much as she likes, but she has no proof of that. She can't prove a bot or a troll or where it originated from or anything like that. And it literally is just, they were within their rights if they wanted to boost pro-Justin content, and there was nothing. They were within their rights to boost anti-Blake content if they wanted, if it was true. If it was true content, you know what I mean? If it wasn't a lie, why can't they? You know, I wouldn't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? It's because you can guarantee it would have been being done on the opposite side. It's not a business I would want to be in, but I don't see how you can argue it. So there are texts describing bringing Jed up to speed, flagging to Jed and working with a separate team based in Hawaii. The second amended complaint characterises internal tag PR texts as saying Justin wants to feel like Blake can be buried, with PR replies like we can't write we will destroy her, and you know we can bury anyone, and there being a directive to focus on Reddit, TikTok, IG. It's all saying we could do or we can't. He wants to feel like she can bury it. He doesn't say he actually wants to grab a spade and dig a 6-foot pit for her to go in, does there? And it is PR team messages. They're not direct quotes from Justin. So it also claims the amended complaint coordinated boost or suppress actions, push favourable TikTok, suppress negative press, and per Blake's interpretation of the messages, refer items to Jed and his team. Even the second amended complaint's own excerpts notes that the PR said, we do not have bots, bots look fake, which they do, while also mentioning Jamie and Jed connected, i.e. suggesting other amplification tools. But it's all a spin. It's all spin from Blake's point of view, isn't it? So sorry if I'm boring you, but I think it's just important to touch on it all, just not to go through the whole thing, but just to bring up anything that's supposedly fresh, but it isn't really. So what she fails to keep seeing is that even if boost and suppress was happening, which I'm sure she's been guilty of, unless she's pretending to be the Virgin Mary or Mother Teresa, they weren't actually creating anything. It's not been proved that they were creating anything that didn't exist, that wasn't publicly available and already deemed unsavoury by the public themselves. So he denies the insinuations. Oh, it's 11:11 as I speak, an angel number. He denies the insinuations of a smear astroturf scheme and the alleged meanings that the second amended complaint attaches to PR chatter. He admits standard PR relationships, e.g. that he was contracted with Jones Works and stuff, but not the dark ops versions that Blake paints it out to be. So the answer systematically denies paragraphs that are conclusions or characterizations. So every time she's villainized him basically, or tried to make something out of nothing, he's just categorically denied it or said that's not a proper characterization of what actually happened. So he is stacking up this idea of how he's responded is based on his First Amendment rights. So basically he is allowed to speak in defense of himself. He is allowed to employ an attorney to defend himself. He's allowed to have his attorney coordinate with his PR team that is all normal, natural conduct. So he stacks First Amendment and other defences, arguing Blake can't convert public relations work and communications into legal torts. And it's this idea of all of the things, no matter how terrible what she claims looked, she's failing to kind of categorize it in a way that damages can be linked to it, because it's all story, I guess. There's no, where's the facts and the legal arguments that can be applied to the facts? It's like nothing ties it to how do you classify this in terms of damages. So she's not in this second amended complaint, she's not found a way that legal damages could be attached to it, I guess is what that's saying. So she hasn't proven in her complaint fundamental damage in legal terms that needs remuneration. So he stressed things like there's comparative fault. If you think I've done something, look what you've done, basically. This in pari delicto, meaning Blake can't sue when she was at fault for contributing to what was happening. And also inserting that not just her, that everybody related to her as well has added to this. All of her PR, all of her representatives, her own husband, I guess, her solicitors, have all contributed to what's happened to her. So it's very clever. And that California statutory claims fail because she doesn't allege his wrongful acts occurred in California. And I think back when his suit was dismissed, I think the judge did allude to that, really, that why have you not kind of, and that was a question many were asking at the time, why didn't he do something about this jurisdiction aspect of it right at the start, this idea that she gets to sue in New York but she'd raise the CRD in California, and that's kind of still a bit of mystery why that didn't happen. And a lot of people thought that was a big bad move at the time, that he'd kind of just agreed to go deal with it in New York, if you like. I mean, we know that she obviously wanted that in California because she wanted that 47.1. She wanted the CRD because he couldn't retaliate to that if he tried, as what happened, if he tried to raise a lawsuit in opposition to that, it could be deemed as, just by mere act of it being a CRD, you can't, anything is considered retaliatory, So, and that's where Jed Wallace has been clever, really, fighting the jurisdiction issue. And I guess what Perez Hilton is taking note of, fight the jurisdiction issue, because it's quite fundamental. So this idea of she doesn't allege his wrongful acts occurred in California. I mean, they didn't even occur in New York, did they? They occurred in New Jersey. But so that last one undercuts part of her statutory theories. And this idea that she wants treble damages, I guess, and all of that too. So she forum shopped. She wanted 47.1. She wanted to disempower him from being permitted to respond. So this we all know. So to clarify, even Blake's own cited PR text that's snapshotted says, "We do not have bots." So she is claiming there is a bot army. Their own messages that they've provided to the complaint poke a hole in that. And the rest reads like typical high-profile crisis PR, which isn't illegal by itself. The second amended complaint relies heavily on inference that Justin directed a takedown, and Justin's answer resists that leap of argument, if you like. So wherever and whenever possible, he's just confirming the material facts and saying the rest is fabricated or didn't happen in the way it's categorised, which we know it's all been spun, don't we? For example, he categorically denies the overheard witness statement provided to Blake where Steve Sarowitz likened taking down Blake and Ryan to Israel taking down Hamas and referencing dead bodies and such. And as I said, Steve Sarowitz denied that allegation too, or that he did that in other instances as well, did something similar. So what was really new? Not an awful lot, really, just deeper PR narrative, focusing on the social combat plan, social manipulation, a digital team, and trying to make Jed Wallace and Street appear as key pillars tying the PR strategy to an alleged retaliation scheme simply by providing a little bit of expanded messaging that happened sometime between the 7th and the 18th of August. So the 17 provisions and January 4th meeting are laid out as contract mandated rather than being a surprise ambush. Names who were in the room are specified because that's what, you know, she's trying to say it was all agreed upon, that blah, blah, blah. But I think most of us feel that Justin and Jamie were quite taken aback. They weren't expected to be confronted with what happened to them, and they were on the back foot with that as well, not being prepared as well. So they're just hyping up the mentions of Ange Giannetti as well, that she somehow was acknowledging Blake's experiences and supporting that return to production documents. And Justin disputes this idea of Ange Giannetti was feeding to him complaints of a HR nature. So he's got 29 affirmative defences, basically focusing on her failure to state a claim, and this idea. So one of the things that's quoted, it's all this idea of, if she's got a problem, it's of her nature. And one of the words that we used was estoppel or estoppel, I don't know how you pronounce it, which basically stops people taking advantage of the situation they created. It's focusing on that idea of her hands were not clean here. So yeah, the First Amendment, he is allowed the right to speak in his defence. Blake consented to many things, failure to mitigate, and the damages being too speculative. It's like, there's nothing tangible there to get a hold of. It's like she didn't want to provide the financials, did she, as to prove as to dates and times and significant financial impact on it, because she doesn't want to give away any of her powers. She doesn't want anybody to know if these businesses were failing anyway, if they weren't doing very well, or if they were receiving regular contributions from Ryan's savings account. She doesn't want you to know that. So and basically just getting across that California statutes don't apply to him because no wrongful acts happened in California. So it's like saying, even if something happened, it's not legally what you say happened. And even if it were, you can't pin it on me, and you can't show any real damages either. You know, so that's kind of his most argument, really. Just gonna look quick more if I've got any more notes. Yeah, and just basically that PR and press strategy, you know, will often be protected speech. So the argument is leaning hard on First Amendment, Constitution, and the idea of she's not producing a case that can be legally awarded damages, that can be clarified or classified in any way, I guess. So it's taking that second amended complaint, which if you just look at the story that is created, the narrative, it seems terrible and awful. But if you break it down into removing all of the story from it, suddenly it goes from this was terrible and it happened to this woman and this poor girl to is this actually actionable? Because much of it is just how she felt about things, or the spin that she wanted to put on it because that suited her narrative. Okay, I'm just going to pause. So Blake has, 15 causes of action that she wants to, put to him from her second amended complaint, and her prayer for relief is, I find that really interesting in law terms. Wherefore plaintiff prays for the following relief: for a money judgment representing compensatory damages, including consequential damages, lost wages, earning, and all other sums of money, together with interest on these amounts, in an amount to be proven at trial, for an award of money judgment for mental pain and anguish and severe and serious emotional distress in an amount to be proven at trial. Now, how can she even ask for that? Because at very least it should be garden variety emotional distress. So it's like she can't ask for that, to my mind, when she's already taken away those aspects of her claim. You can't just go back and say mental pain and anguish and severe and serious emotional distress for pre and post judgment interest, for statutory and civil penalties, for punitive damages according to proof, for attorneys' fees and costs incurred by Ms. Lively, and for such other legal and equitable relief as the court deems appropriate. And as many people have been saying, she's not been worrying about how much she's been running up in terms of legal bills, because there's an aspect of her that thinks she's going to get treble damages and it won't be her problem, it'll be Justin's problem. So let's just quickly run through, before we get too long, Justin's affirmative and other defendants. So by alleging the following affirmative and other defences, defendant is not in any way agreeing or conceding that it has the burden of proof or burden of persuasion on any of these issues, as separate and distinct defences to plaintiff's complaint and each purported cause of action contained therein. Defendant alleges as follows. First defence, 470. The complaint and each claim alleged therein fails to state facts sufficient to constitute any claim for relief against defendant. Second defence, 471. The complaint and each claim alleged therein is barred as plaintiff lacks standing to sue. Third defence, 472. The complaint and each claim alleged therein is barred as plaintiff has waived her claims. Had to stop for a minute. Right, fourth defence. The plaintiff, the complaint and each claim alleged therein is barred as plaintiff is estopped from asserting her claims. So that's this idea of you caused it. You can't complain about something that you actively fed. Fifth defence, the complaint and each claim alleged therein is barred as plaintiff acted and continues to act with unclean hands. Sixth defence, the complaint and each claim alleged therein is barred as plaintiff has not been damaged in any way or at all as a result of any alleged acts or omissions of defendant. I mean, she's not been acting like a damaged person, has she? She's going to have an incredible job proving that, especially when she doesn't want to give over financial information and the rest of it, and she doesn't want to give any medical records or anything like that. Seventh defence, the complaint and each claim alleged therein is barred in whole or in part by the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. Eighth defence, the complaint and each claim alleged therein is barred by reason of plaintiff's consent. Ninth defence, the complaint and each claim alleged therein is barred as plaintiff has failed to undertake reasonable measures to mitigate the damages she claims to have incurred. Any recovery by plaintiff must be diminished to the extent that any alleged damages could have been avoided if such measures had been taken. She did it to herself. 10th defence, defendant is informed and believes and on that basis alleges that plaintiff would be unjustly enriched if recovery were to be had on this complaint. She doesn't want to get even, she wants to win. 11th defence, plaintiff has not been damaged in any amount alleged or in any amount whatsoever, and is not entitled to any general, compensatory, statutory, punitive, or other damages, or any other relief as a result of any of the allegations set forth in the complaint. She's not pled it right, basically. 12th defence, the acts and or omissions of plaintiff excused any alleged act or alleged failure to act on the part of defendant. Then 13th defence, if defendant had any alleged obligations or legal duties which defendant hereby expressly denies, defendant has appropriately, completely and fully performed and discharged any alleged obligations and any alleged legal duties arising out of the matters alleged in the complaint. 14th defence, the damages and injuries, if any, suffered by plaintiff were directly and proximately caused solely by the acts or omissions of individuals or entities other than defendant. The acts and omissions of such other individuals or entities are superseding or intervening causes of loss or damages, if any, suffered by plaintiff. As a consequence thereof, plaintiff is barred from recovery against the defendant herein. 15th defence. The damages and injuries, if any, suffered by plaintiff were directly and proximately caused solely by the reckless, negligent and wrongful conduct of individuals or entities other than the defendant. As a consequence thereof, plaintiff is barred from recovery herein. 16th defence. The damages and injuries, if any, suffered by the plaintiff were directly and proximately caused solely by the intentional misconduct of individuals or entities other than the defendant. As a consequence thereof, plaintiff is barred from recovery herein. 17th defence. The complaint fails to state facts sufficient to permit an award of punitive damages, and any such award would violate due process. 18th defence. The complaint and each and every cause of action alleged therein fails to state any facts supporting any claim for punitive or exemplary damages. 19th defence. Oh God, there's more. The complaint and each and every cause of action alleged therein is barred in whole or in part because at all material times defendant acted in good faith and without malice based upon all relevant facts and circumstances known by defendant at the time. 20th defence. Plaintiff and her agents, servants and employees has failed to bring the causes of action alleged in the complaint in a timely manner and are therefore barred from recovery against defendant in whole or in part by the equitable doctrine of lashes. I'm not sure what that one is. And there's never really been a clarification as to why it is Blake Lively bringing this suit when Blake Lively was contracted out by her own LLC, that Blake L. It's like that. Why has that never been touched on? Why did they just accept this idea of Blake being directly employed by Wayfarer and him being the boss and such when it was actually her own company that contracted out her as an actress? I don't know the legalities behind that, but they've never touched on that to my knowledge. 20th defence. Plaintiff and her agents, servants and employees, I've done that one, has failed to bring the causes of action alleged in the complaint in a timely manner. Yeah, I've done that, haven't I? 21st. Defendant alleges that in the event it is found in some manner legally liable to plaintiff as a result of the events or occurrences described in the complaint, that liability will be solely based upon a derivative, vicarious or imputed form of liability, not resulting from its own conduct, but instead based upon an obligation imposed on it by law or by the conduct of others. And as such, the legal liability of defendant would be proximately caused by the acts or omissions of others, and therefore defendant is entitled to recover contribution from them. 22nd defence. Defendant alleges that in the event it is found in some manner legally liable to plaintiff as a result of the events or occurrences described in the complaint, that liability will be based solely upon a derivative, vicarious or imputed form of liability, not resulting from its own conduct, but instead based upon an obligation imposed upon it by law or by the conduct of others. And as such, the legal liability of defendant would be proximately caused by acts or omissions of others, and therefore defendant is entitled to recover total and complete implied and or comparable indemnity from them. So it's setting it up that Justin will be going for expenses if this comes through for him. 23rd defence. Defendant alleges that in the event it is found in some manner legally liable to plaintiff as a result of the events or occurrences described in the complaint, that liability is doing the same thing over and over. Acts or omissions of others, and therefore defendant is entitled to recover total and complete equitable indemnity from them. So it's just basically for each of the different aspects of it, I guess, arguing the same case, that he will be entitled to recover his expenses. Any injury or damage to plaintiff which defendant specifically denies was proximately caused by the negligence, recklessness or intentional conduct of others who acted as one or more of the plaintiff's legal counsel, agents or representatives. Accordingly, if any liability is found on the part of defendant then defendant's liability to plaintiff shall be reduced on the basis of comparative fault. 25th defence. Any injury or damage to plaintiff which defendant specifically denies was proximately caused by the negligence of the plaintiff. She's her own worst enemy, basically, Judge. 26th defence. Plaintiff's alleged damages are too speculative to permit recovery in this case. 27th defence. The complaint and each and every cause of action alleged therein is barred in whole or in part by the doctrine of in pari delicto. Yeah, just that you were as crazy as I was, if anything, basically. 28th defence. The complaint and each and every cause of action alleged against defendant therein fails to allege facts sufficient to allow recovery of attorney's fees from defendant. 29th defence. Plaintiff's claims based upon California statutes are barred because plaintiff does not allege that defendant took any wrongful actions within the state of California. Reservation of additional defences. Defendant presently has insufficient knowledge or information on which to form a belief as to whether it may have additional, as yet unstated, affirmative or other defences available. Defendant reserves the right to assert additional defences in the event that discovery indicates they would be appropriate. So it's like we may not be done yet. Prayer for relief. And this is more apt in Justin's case, I think, it ending on a prayer for relief. Wherefore, defendant Justin Baldoni prays for relief as follows: that the complaint be dismissed with prejudice and plaintiff take nothing herein. That judgment be entered in favour of defendant and against plaintiff for costs of suit incurred in this action and for such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper. Defendant demands a jury trial on all causes of action so triable. So basically that's him saying, I'm happy to have a jury trial if you actually think she's got anything here that is actually legally triable, which he's clearly disputing across the board and in all ways. So yeah, I've kind of felt a lot of reluctance about covering this for the last couple of days because it's just been legally hefty and nothing really new, and involves you diving back into Blake's narrative on things, which is quite a negative headspace to be in for any length of time. So I think every time I've started to do something, I felt my body go, I don't want to do this. Even like halfway through this, I was like, I don't know if I can be bothered. I can't be asked, as we say, continuing. And then I think, oh no, just show up and do it. Just get it out of the way. And that's what I feel about it now. It's like all of this that's on the docket and everything. You know, if anybody truly loved or truly cared for Blake Lively and was in their right mind and had her best interests at heart and the best interests of her family, they would have been telling her to shut this down long ago, if not now. You know, because when push comes to shove, does it really matter if she wins this? She could walk away now, not get a penny from him, and she'd be perfectly all right. She'd be wealthy for the rest of her life. She has no real problems other than what's going on in her head and the fact that she completely listens to her ego, and she's entirely internal. She's entirely insular, looking inwards at herself all the time for how it's affecting her. She's not looking outwards at all. Anytime she claims to be looking at outwards people, like in terms of how it affected Another Simple Favour and the cast and the crew, she doesn't believe that, not for one single second. She doesn't care if Joe Bloggs, who was a assistant director or something on Another Simple Favour, didn't get their bonus or something as a result of something that happened. It's just nonsense, really. And I think that's why I get resistance to continuing to cover it, because when I started this is not what I signed up for, to be here like 65, 66 videos in. This is not what I signed up for. And I guess at that, I am as liable as Blake, because at any time I could have said to myself, enough, I'm not doing this anymore. But you feel it is that thing of, for me, it's like once you've started something, you have to see it through. But I think if it was, you know what I mean, this is just in terms of taking up a little bit of my time every day or every couple of days or having it have some headspace. For her, look at what this has done in terms of real damage. The pall that must be hanging over that penthouse apartment or whatever it is, the mood that she must be in around her children, the impact on her relationships. She must be feeling rather lonely and rather isolated, I would think, because literally the only people that she's having conversations with will be the odd members of her family who probably are sick of hearing about it, and the people that she's paying to put up with it, basically, at this point in time. And we've seen plenty of evidence that's not the case with the Wayfarer parties, that despite it all, there's camaraderie and there's a little bit of humour about it and being in it together, and having each other's backs and all of that. And Blake doesn't have that. And that is something in which we can have a tiny little bit of sympathy for her, just in a human way kind of thing. But yeah, it's kind of sad really, and that's why I'm struggling more and more with it, I think, because when I dive into these legal documents, it's like, this is all just so stupid to be doing to yourself. And it's, you know, I wonder if Justin even in some way wishes he'd never got into it. I mean, I think he will largely feel he had no choice but to get into it. And I guess going in, he suspected that it would be exactly the same feeling as he felt he had when he was on that movie set, and it was a no-win situation. But when you're kind of a good and just person, you always think that justice will win out in the end, that sooner or later somebody will see the truth and the truth will win out and all of that. And in real life, it doesn't always happen. In real life, sometimes you have to draw a line under things and you have to weigh up what is the damage, what can you afford to lose, and does that stop you having a decent quality of life going forward? And I imagine all of that has run through his head, has run through his mind. But it's like, if nothing else, as we've said before, he couldn't have let the SH allegation really go unresolved, because that casts him in a certain light to the entire world. And while there's many things in life you can ignore, SH hanging over you is a very hard one to ignore, especially when your work involves being around women, directing women, being there when intimate scenes are happening with women. You know, he has to be able to work. This is his thing, you know what I mean? So yeah, anyway, you hope that wasn't boring. I feel like these last couple of days, like when I sat out to do the one yesterday, I thought, if I was watching this, would I be bored? And it's like I've been finding it hard to put myself in the other person's perspective, you know what I mean? Because to me at this point, it's like wading through mud. I literally feel like now Wayfarer just giving, like I said before, it's like this avalanche of here. Are you finally, Judge, are you finally, you know, winky face emoji, are you finally going to get it? Blake Lively, are you finally going to get it? You can't find anything. This is all there is. This is just PR. This is just people conducting their day-to-day business, trying to deal with you as this loose cannon. And even then, we're not calling you horrible names. We're not calling you all things under the sun. We're kind of surprised at what's happening ourselves. But she just isn't getting it because it doesn't suit the story in her head. And it's a story that should never have started in the first place. It's a story with no basis. It's the story of a woman who was maybe at a little bit of a vulnerable time in her life, getting that bit older, coming back to work, being a little bit heavier than she wanted to be, having to do these intimate scenes, because she's not really known for stripping off that much or anything really. Blake Lively, you know, a very attractive man, that nice voice and all of that, and yet he wasn't swayed by her. He preferred his nice, slender wife, you know, that unassuming kind of lady, very refined, genteel. That whole question mark of, this is what their relationship looks like and this is what my relationship looks like. Is my relationship really what I thought my relationship was. Is it normal to just talk at each other 24/7? Or I keep harking back to that dance montage and that idea that where they had that interchange and he was, I can look into my wife's eyes for 5 minutes and we'll just know what each other are thinking. And she called that him being a sociopath, and she referred and she's brought that into the argument, hasn't she? That on that you can see it in that dance montage clip. I called him a sociopath. That was how I felt. When really she called him a sociopath for being able to look into his wife's eyes for 5 minutes and just know what she was thinking. You know, how sad is that? And that's kind of what I keep coming back to with Blake, is you have to have some sympathy, because if you put yourself in her position, which I don't encourage you to do, I'll stay there. But how sad is that? And how lovely, and I think it's that jealousy, it's that, I think there was a thing in Blake's mind of why can't I have that? I don't have that. I have to keep talking at my husband in order to get his attention. There's never that stillness, that just being. And you can imagine the bullshit they're talking about most of the time. Who did this? Who did that? Who was right? Who was wrong? Who can I rip off? You know what I mean? I think a lot of this would have flagged up to Blake that there is a lot that is hollow in her life. And even if she didn't acknowledge consciously that was going on, I think subconsciously that was feeding through to her. And I think she was attracted to Justin, but she also didn't understand him. But there was this sense of, it very much flagged up, you know, her wiles didn't work on him, her feminine wiles and her flirtatiousness and all of that. And it's like, oh, so that's not even available to me to have that kind of relationship that Justin and his wife does, because I don't know how to do that. It's not working with him. So am I just confined to having this kind of relationship where it's talk at each other with no intimacy, no real intimacy? And a lot of the things that she's flagged up as complaining about of him, where it sways a bit more intimate talking, I think it's because it's triggered her. It's not that he's said anything necessarily inappropriate. I think he's somebody that isn't used to naturally speaking in quite an intimate way, and maybe a little bit of oversharing and that, but in a way to try and connect with somebody on a deeper level. And she's been like, ooh, I don't know how to deal with this. It feels inappropriate to me because I can't talk on an intimate level. So to her, it feels like an overstep maybe a bit, but it also makes her question everything she thinks she knows about a good and healthy relationship. And I think there's a lot of that in the undercurrents of it all. And everything that she's angry about is she's frustrated with what her own life is. I do think that's a lot of it. Anyway, hope that was interesting. Please do hit that like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content, and I will see you later. Bye bye.